Okay, thank you. We'll start. So, previous class, you people understood the yeah. Good morning to all. So, I think we'll start now. Previous class, you people understood the course learning objectives and course outcomes of application development using Python codes. Okay. And I also briefly showed you the entire syllabus of application development using Python. So now today I will just start with the introduction. Okay, I'll share my screen. Uh, just check all of you can see my screen. So one or two, just unmute yourself and respond back to me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. So this is how I'm starting now. So why should you learn to write programs? And many answer for this, and it varies from one user perspective to the other user. But the most general ones I have written here. Okay. Writing programs is a very creative and rewarding activity. Yes. So if you know to program, you can create the what creative ideas. You can convert your creative ideas into reality, and of course it's a rewarding activity. And many write programs for solving a difficult data analysis problem. So they write programs to build the games in order to have a fun, because you have played majority of the games, many games you might have played, and all those games are programmed, and they make you have fun. And sometimes we write programs to solve others' problems also. So we identify the daily life problem, and then we try to come up with a solution to the problem by writing a program. And we have many things. We have the computers, we have the laptops, we have the cell phones, and all of these devices we have our own programs running, and these programs are helping us in doing our jobs easily. Now, since they are helping us to do our jobs easily, so we can call these computers as our personal assistants. The two major things what they are doing to us. So they're carrying us. So why I should say they are carrying us? Because they are helping us in our activities. Okay. So even now the programs and the computers, or it may be a laptop or it may be a cell phone, because many of you might have connected to this class through cell phones also, smartphones. They are carrying us and they are helping us. And what they will be doing is, all these devices which are running the program, they'll be asking us, what would you like to do, what would you like me to do next? So this is all what these devices expect from you. So they will be keep asking, what you want me to do next, whether a computer or a laptop or a cell phone. And how you'll be saying what the computer should do next? It is by writing an instruction or by writing a program. Okay. No. So computers wants to be helpful, and the computers are built for one purpose, to do things for us. They solve our problems very fast and accurate. But for computers to do our things, to do our work, so we need to speak their language. So the language what the computers understand. And sometimes users have it easy. That means you don't have to write the program. You it's not like all the users or all the users of the computers or the laptop or the cell phone screen should be having the knowledge of programming. So somebody else has written the programs and you're using it and you have the task done. So that is also possible. And every time what the computer does is it will be asking what next. So you should be keep answering what next question that is posed by the computer system. And that is possible only through the program. Now I just want you people to say there is a paragraph displayed over here. I want you to read this and see whether you can understand something from this. All of you are reading?
Yes, sir.
Can I have response? Your response?
Sir.
Yes, sir. We are.
Yeah. Just go through this. Go through this.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Let me read out for you also. Writing programs is a very creative and rewarding activity. You can write programs for many reasons, ranging from making your living to solve a difficult data analysis problem, to having fun, to helping someone else solve a problem. So this book assumes that everyone needs to know how to program, and that once you know how to program, you'll figure out what you want to do with your newfound skills. So we are surrounded in our daily lives with computers ranging from laptops to cell phones. We can think of these computers as our personal assistants who can take care of many things on our behalf. The hardware in our current day computers is essentially built to continuously ask us the question, what would you like me to do next? Programmers add an operating system and a set of applications to the hardware, and we end up with a personal digital assistant that is quite helpful and capable of helping us to do many different things. Our computers are fast and have vast amounts of memory and could be very helpful to us if we only knew the language to speak to explain to the computer what we would like to do. If we knew this language, we could tell the computer to do tasks on our behalf that we were repetitive. Interestingly, the kinds of things computers can do best are often the kinds of things that we humans find boring and mind numbing. So this is the complete paragraph. I hope all of you have gone through this. Yeah. Now I have a few questions on this. Have you understood the paragraph? Yes or no? Can I have a response?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you have understood. Only one yes I got. So what about the rest?
Yes, sir.
Can I have many yes?
Yes.
Okay, you have understood it.
Yes, sir.
Now, okay, identify the word that has occurred more times. So you have gone through that paragraph, you read it, and you have understood something. But can you do the second one now? Identify the word that has occurred more times. You have just gone through that, but this is a very difficult job. You cannot do this. So when I asked you, have you understood the paragraph? You said yes. Few yeses I could listen. So now when I ask the same thing, identify the word that has occurred more times. You have gone through it, but you cannot tell now. Now I have few things here. Human can read and understand in few seconds. Yes, that is what you did now. You went through the paragraph which was displayed and you understood. Identifying the word that occur most is almost painful because it is not the kind of problem the human minds are designed to solve. You can understand. You went through the paragraph, you understood it, and you said, yes, sir, we understood it. But when I asked, what is the word that is more frequently occurring in the paragraph? So it is a painful job because our minds are not designed to solve that. So now, this is I told with respect to the human. Okay. So next, For a computer, the opposite is true. Reading and understanding the text from a piece of paper is hard for a computer to do. So what we the humans can do, so is totally opposite to the computer. It's difficult for it. But counting the words and telling you how many times the most used word has occurred is very easy for the computer. Okay. So how? You write a program and you tell it, so just identify the word which has more frequently occurred in this paragraph, it will tell you. So it will tell you much faster than you. Now, computer program doing the task for you. So I have a Python program with the name words.py. So, and this is the name of the interpreter, because to perform the execution of this, I need the interpreter, and what interpreter I am using? The Python interpreter. Okay. So Python, and this is my Python program, and with this you can easily know what is the extension to your Python program. It is .py. And when I execute this Python program using the Python interpreter, so it is prompting me to enter the file name, enter file. I am giving the file name as input. What is the file name I am giving? Words.txt. And then my program is telling me, so the more frequently used word is 2, and the number of occurrences is what? 16. How many times it has occurred? 16 times. And this was the most painful job for the humans to do, but the computer can do it very easily. But the humans can easily read and understand in few seconds, but making the computer to understand what it is very difficult, but these types of job the computer can very easily do it. So, but with the advancement in the technology like the artificial intelligence and machine learning, so you can even make the computer systems understand, read and understand something which is written even on the piece of paper also. But again, for all these things, you have to train your machine, and for training the machine, you require the programs, all these things. So, hope you're clear with my intentions. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll get back to this program. So, this program I'll show you. So, even you don't know what are the elements within the Python programming language, how to create a variable, how to create an integer variable, string, what are the reserved words available or the keywords available in Python. But already I have shown you one program, words.py, and this program again we'll be discussing very shortly. Okay. Even though you don't know the syntax and semantics of the Python, so I would like to show that program to you. Okay. So computer hardware architecture, all of you are very much familiar with this. So you have started writing this architecture even from your first semester. So these are the various computer hardware and also the general architecture of the any computer system. So when I say general architecture of the any computer system, it should have these things. One is the central processing unit, main memory it should have, secondary memory, input output devices. So of course you should have an optional network connectivity also. Okay. So now you have the secondary memory for storing all the data, all your data and program permanently, even when there is the power failure, even when the system is not up and running. So, and main memory is the memory to which your programs will be loaded when you want your programs or the application to be executed. So, they get loaded into the main memory, and you have the central processing unit fetching the instructions and data from the main memory executing. And every time what the central processing unit will be doing is it will be asking you what next. What next? What to do next? What to do next? Or in other words, the program counter, program PC, the program counter is responsible for guiding the central processing unit what it should do next, because it holds the address of the next instruction to be executed. And you have input and output devices. What they do, they supply all they are used for getting the input from the external devices. So majority of the time we get the required input from the standard input device. So along with this, you can also get the required input to the central processing unit from various other external devices connected to your system. At the same time, the CPU can go for presenting the result of the computation to the users using the various output devices, and one standard output device is the STD out or the monitor. Okay. So this. Okay, this I think I can skip. These are the definitions of what I showed you in the previous architecture. Central processing unit, what it does, runs the program. CPU is always wondering what to do next. That is the only thing what it knows. It will be asking you what to do next. Yes, please mute. How frequently it will be asking? So 3 billion times per second. It's capable of asking you 3 billion times per second what I should do next. Only thing is, you should be capable enough to answer what to do next so many times. But so practically it is not possible for human to answer it so many times, but that is the reason we write what the programs, and the program gets loaded into the main memory, and from there it is given to the CPU. Okay. And then input devices, okay, not a problem. Output devices, main memory, secondary memory, all these things I have already told you. Next. Okay, this is the architecture of the computer system. Now when it comes to the question of where we are, yes, I think few have not muted. So can I have USN 17 CS 136 mute? Please mute. So 136 is still not muted. Okay. So next is where we are. Okay, CPU asks you what to do next. I told roughly 3 billion times per second. Now this you have to answer. So from where you have to answer? From the main memory. So this is where you stand, because all the programs which you try to execute gets loaded into the main memory, and from here the CPU questions are answered. Okay. So as a programmer, the job is to use each of these resources to solve the problem. Okay. Now if you want to solve any of the problem, you got to make use of all these resources. You have to use CPU, you have to use secondary memory, main memory, input output devices, and sometimes the network also. When you use all these things, you have your problem solved. And as a programmer, what you'll do, you'll mostly be talking to the CPU and telling what to do next. This is the only answer which you should give to the CPU. So sometimes you'll tell the CPU to use the main memory, sometimes you'll tell it to use the secondary memory, network, input output devices, and you have to tell how the CPU should use all these resources in order to perform the required computation. That is what the program will be doing. So you have to answer the CPU's question, that is what next, and it is not possible for us. Now I told we have to stand inside the main memory, but practically it is not possible for us to shrink down to 5 mm tall and get inserted ourselves into the main memory and answer 3 billion commands per second, or 3 billion questions asked by the CPU per second. So it is not at all possible. Instead, what we have to do, so we have to write down instructions in advance, and we want these instructions to be loaded into the main memory in the form of a program. So next, user versus programmer. So when I view the computer system from the user's perspective, the user sees the computer as a set of tools. Just the word processor, spreadsheet, map to-do list, etc. Many other applications. If you know few more applications, you can write them. For an ordinary user, the computer is a set of tools consisting all these things. So programmer, when I say, he learns the computer language, and programmer have some tools that allow them to build the new tools. He'll make use of the tools. So integrated development environments, for example, you have many IDEs, integrated development environments. Say I want to build a new tool using the Eclipse IDE, I'll use it. I want to build a new tool using .NET Framework IDE. I'll use it like this. Now, programmers use the tools, integrated development environments, in order to build the new tools. So, programmers sometimes write tools for many users. So, they develop one tool and they make that tool available for many users. Say, for example, the word processor developed by some development organization and sold in the open market to many users. So, whoever requires the word processor use, they purchase it and they use it. And sometimes the programmers will also go for writing the little helper programs for themselves in order to automate few things. So, I want to perform some task on a daily basis regularly. So, every day, instead of doing it manually, what I can do is I can write a program for myself, and then I can automate the task which I used to do in my daily life. So, why be a programmer? So, all of you know this, to get some task done through the programs, and to produce something for others to use, a programming job. If you want a programming job, and writing the programs which will help the others, so you have to be a programmer. So next, what is a code, software, or a program? So code is nothing but, or a software is nothing but, or a program is nothing but a little piece of our intelligence inside the computer, which will solve our problems. Or you can say a code or a program is a piece of creative heart, which will ease the job of users and also make the users have a very good experience of doing the work. So now, in the previous slide, I was mentioning one Python program with the name words.py. I gave you a passage, a paragraph, and I asked you to go through it. So many of you have gone through it, and you told me that you have understood what the paragraph means. But at the same time, so it was a difficult job for us to identify the more frequently occurring word in the paragraph. And I showed this words.py Python program can easily help you in finding the most frequently occurring word in that passage. So now time to understand that program. So don't get panic. So without knowing the syntax and semantics of the Python programming language, now sir has showed us the program to count the more frequently occurring words in the words.txt. So this is the program. So you can easily understand this. I'll make you understand this program, because with this program you'll understand the beauty of the Python programming language. Okay. See here. So the first line, what we have written as input, enter the file name. So this is something like input and output statement. So in the C programming, let me relate this with the C. In the C programming language, to prompt something, some message on the screen, so you used to write the printf statement. When you write the printf statement, so the argument which you were passing to the printf statement, so used to get printed on the console or the output screen. And similarly, if I ask you to read something from the keyboard in the C programming language, you used to write the scanf statement. So printf was input and printf is an output statement, and scanf was an input statement to C programming language. But here the input, what I am writing here, is both output as well as input. Now what it will do when I write like this, input, enter the file, so this message will be prompted on the screen on the console, and it also waits for you to enter the file name from the keyboard. It is outputting the argument which is supplied as argument to the function input on the console. At the same time, it is also expecting an input from the keyboard. So this message gets printed on the screen, enter file. So you got to enter the file name. What file name we will be entering? So I will be entering it as words.txt. So in words.txt, I have that entire passage stored. Okay, and once you read this, enter this words.txt file name from the keyboard, it gets assigned to name. It gets assigned to name. Name is equal to words.txt right now. I hope you understood what input is doing. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next is, so just now I have read the file name, now I got to open it. In C program, so to open a file you used to write fopen, file open. So same thing in Python can be done by this, open file name. So where is the file name? The file name right now is assigned to name, open name. So it will open. Again there are different modes. So you can open a file in read mode, write mode, or both the modes, read, write mode. Now by default what will it will happen? Say the mode I have not specified, by default it will open the file in the read mode. For to open a file in the read mode, I don't have to explicitly specify the mode. If I just say open and the file name, by default it will be opened in the read only mode. Now the file is opened in the read only mode and an handler is assigned to it. An handler is assigned to it. So what is this handler? So whenever a process opens a file for the first time, operating system will create something called as FDT, file descriptor table, to that process. And the first unused entry from the file descriptor table will be returned as the handler. So let me take a pen and write something here. When a process opens a file for the first time, a file called as FDT. I hope all of you can see what I am writing on the slide.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. A table with the name FDT, file descriptor table, is created. So the first entry in the file descriptor table, this is the index. The first column is index and this is the file. File 0, 1 and 2. The first three entries are result. 0 is the file handler for stdin. What is stdin?
Standard.
Yeah, standard. What is it? Which one you call it as standard input?
Standard input, sir.
Hello?
So,
Which one you call it as standard input? Keyboard. And one is the file handler for std out, standard output. That is your monitor. And 2 is the handler for std error. std error. So these are result. 0 is nothing but stdin and 1 is nothing but std out, 2 is nothing but std error. Now when the process is trying to open the file for the first time, it will start scanning this FDT from the beginning. So it will scan this and then next it will scan this, next it will scan this. Now where is the next unused entry? Here. What is the index value? 3. What will the handler return? 3. So handle will be 3. Now if I make the same process one more file, okay, so this would be word.txt. I'll write here words.txt. If I make the same process one more file, open one more file, so again it will start scanning the FDT from the beginning for the first unused entry. So next time, for the second time, where is the next first unused entry found? At the index value 4. For the second file, the handler would be how much? 4. OP people understood with this? Yes or no?
yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the handle returned is 3. So always remember this. Whenever a process opens a file for the first time, what will be the handler? 3. Or else you can call this as an handler, or else you can also call it as file descriptor. It is always an integer value. Okay. Next. So this is still here. I think these two statements you understood. Next one. Counts is equal to dictionary. This is a data structure. What I am doing now, I am creating a dictionary with the name counts. What is the name of the dictionary? Counts. What a dictionary stores? Key value pair. It will store a key and a value. So it's a key value pair. Okay, I am creating a dictionary with the name counts. How to create the dictionary? Like this, something like this. Counts is equal to DICT this. Next, I'm running a for loop for line in handle. Handle is 3. Now what this will do is, when I say write line, so it's not like you should always write it as line, you can give any name here. For L in handle also you can write. Okay. So this for loop is going to iterate for every line which is found inside the word.txt, words.txt. So first iteration, it will take the first line from words.txt. Hope you are following? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So first iteration, it will take the first line from words.txt, and then, so this is how the syntax goes. So you got to add the colon here. Okay. Next. Now this statement, words is equal to line dot split, is located inside this for loop. So you don't have the concept of opening curly braces and closing curly braces in order to group the statements under the looping constructs. It is only the spacings and the tabs. I've given a tab here. It means this particular statement is under the for loop. And what about this statement, the next for loop? Is it under this for loop? Does it come
Yes, sir.
under the first for loop? Yes. And then this statement, counts of word what I have written, so this comes under this for loop, and in turn comes under this outer for loop. Okay. Next, what I am doing, so in the first iteration of the outer for loop, I am taking a line, first line from the words.txt, I'm on that line, I am calling the split function. Now split function by default splits the given line using space as the delimiter. You can pass any delimiter if you want. If you don't pass any argument here, so by default it will use the space as the delimiter, and using space as the delimiter, the line will be split into words, and that is assigned to words. And word is a list of words. Words is a list of words now. OP people are following.
Yes.
You have all the words of the first line stored into this words as a list. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next, I'm running a for loop again. This for loop is nested inside the outer for loop for words in words. So this can be any name you can take. So you can take for W in words also, but this must be words only because this is the list now. The same thing that you are using here. For word in words, okay, this is going to iterate for all the words which are there in this words list now. Counts of word, I'm just trying to find whether this word, key exists in my dictionary. Counts of word is equal to counts.get word. I'm just trying to find this particular word exists inside the dictionary already. If the word doesn't exist inside the dictionary already, okay, I'm assigning the count value as what? Its value as 0. Say for example, my line is something like this: A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. And let me write one more A, B, C, and one more word as P, Q, R. Assume this is my first line. Now all these words are split using the space as the delimiter, and they are stored into words. For word in words, what is my first word? ABC. I'm just checking counts.get word. What is the word now? ABC. Get word ABC. Since the dictionary is empty, so just now it is created, the counts dictionary is empty as of now. You don't find any word ABC, any word with the name or any key with the name ABC inside the dictionary. What it will do? It will add, so counts of what is the word? ABC. ABC is equal to 0. It will make count of ABC is equal to 0. Why 0? Because this word doesn't exist. What get will do is, it will try to check whether the key with this word exists already inside the dictionary. If it doesn't exist, it will assign its value to 0. So the value is made as 0. In case if the word already exists inside the dictionary, so it will take the current value associated with that word and it will increment it by 1. Okay, let me go to the next thing, next iteration. What is the next word? XYZ. So is XYZ already present inside the dictionary? No. Now again, counts of XYZ. Counts of XYZ is made as what? What it has made?
So 0.
0. Count of XYZ is initialized to 0. Sir, I don't want to initialize it to 0, I want to initialize it to 5. Put 5 here, it will initialize. Next. The third iteration. What is the word? ABC. Counts of ABC. Counts dot get ABC. Does ABC exist already inside the dictionary? Yes, it is there. A key with the name ABC is already there inside the dictionary. Now what it will do? It will get the current value associated with the key ABC. What is the current value? 0. Now for to this 0, how much it will add? 1. It will become 1. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So like this, it adds, it counts, it builds the dictionary of all the words which are existing within the paragraph. And next, okay, this builds the dictionary, so it holds the word and the number of occurrences. Next, I have to find the word whose occurrences is more. So what I'm doing here, I'm taking a big count. So as a variable, I'm initializing it to none. So this is how, if I want to initialize a variable to nothing, so you have to always assign it as none, and big word is equal to none, because this variable I'm taking just to display the big word, the word which has occurred a more number of times, and this variable I'm taking just to display the count, how many times it has occurred. Now for word comma count in counts.item, so items is another function which can be called on the dictionary. So get is one function which can be called on the dictionary. Now I'm calling this counts.items. So what this items will do, it will fetch both key value pair. Okay. So from the dictionary, it will fetch the first key value pair. So first key value is word and value is what? The count. So key gets assigned to word and value gets assigned to count. Now I'm doing this. If big count is none or count is greater than big count, what I do is word is equal to big word and count is equal to big count. Finally, after this loop terminates, I'm just printing big word and big count. Okay. So let me execute this and show you. I have the working program. Okay. So let me discard all the annotations what I've made. Okay. I'll open this. As I told yesterday, I'll be using this Spider for executing all the Python programs, and yesterday in the chat box I observed one question. Can we use the Jupyter Notebook? Yes, you can use Jupyter Notebook also, but I'm used to this, I'll be using this. So no doubt, if you want you can use this or else Jupyter Notebook also, not a problem. Okay. Now the same program what I've showed you in the slide, it's here. Okay. And the input file also I'll show you once. Yeah, this is my input file, words.txt. So this is my Python program .py file, and this is my text document. Let me open this. The same passage what you people read earlier in the PPT. Okay. So same thing is given as input to the program. Okay. Now we'll see what is the word that is occurring more frequently. Okay. Now, so this is the program I already written it. How do I run it? Here. See, words.py. This is my program. I just say run. So the program is executing and it is asking me to enter the file. So it is prompting me to enter the file name. So I'll enter words.txt, and now this file words.txt, it must be located in the same folder where this program is residing. Okay. Right now I showed you both words.py and words.txt were on the same folder. Okay. I've given this. Now when I press enter, what will happen? So this file name words.txt gets assigned to name, and then So a process will be created by the operating system to perform the execution of my program, and that process, when it makes a call to the open, so an FDT will be created, file descriptor table will be created for that process, and in that FDT first 3 entries will be resolved, 0, 1 and 2. Now where will be the next unused entry at index value 3, and what it will assign to handle will be 3, and using that you are opening the file and all the logic what I explained you people. So let me press enter. I have entered the words.txt. I'll enter now. I got the answer. So since I've told print big word and big count. So what is my big word? 2. So don't confuse. Big word is not by its length. Big word is by its occurrence. How many times the 2 has occurred? 17 times, and this is the word which has occurred many number of times. Hope you people understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, only one yes I'm getting. What about the rest? Have you people connected and slept?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Again, only 2 to 3.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The way you are saying yes, it shows you all you people are sleeping, connected and sleeping. Okay. Yeah, this program is fine, right?
Yes,
if
sir.
you have any doubts with this, you can ask me.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
Okay. Yeah, let me go back to the PPT again. Yeah. Yeah, this is the program. Okay. So words.txt. So at that time when I ran earlier, I got 2 is occurring how many times? 16 times, but now I got it as 17. I don't know. I might have added one more line or which is containing the word 2, and I ran it on another program, clone.txt. I got the count, so the big word as D and 7. So you can run this program on any file, and you can know what is the word that is occurring more frequently, number of times, which has occurred more number of times. Okay, next, what computer understands? You all know. It understands only zeros and ones. Okay. So this is what I even showed earlier also, the general architecture of the computer system, and all these resources has to be used in order to perform the required computation. So, and you have to write a program for using these resources, how these resources should be used in order to perform the computation. Now, and the CPU always it will be asking what next, what next. You have to answer this what next question asked by the CPU. From where? From the main memory. Okay. I have written here. So as a user, I am there inside the main memory. You can see this stick figure. If x less than 3, print. This is how I write, because I have to, when the CPU asks me what next, I have to tell CPU what it should do next. I am saying if x less than 3, you print this. But this is what I am writing. CPU cannot understand this. It gets converted into a machine language. So whatever I write in high-level statements gets converted into the machine language in zeros and ones like this. And this is what the CPU can understand and performs accordingly. Okay, talking to Python now. Okay. Now how do I talk to the Python? So this, you can see something like this. So 3 arrows. So 3 greater than symbols written like this. So if I write only 2, it is a right shift operator. If I write 3, it is called as a chevron. What it is called as? Yeah, what this is called as? Chevron. Okay, that means the Python is ready and asking for you to what next. Okay, so it prompts like this. Then you have to tell Python do this. Then Python will in turn talk to what? The CPU, and you have your job done. Okay. So this is how you can talk to the Python. So this chevron symbol allows you to talk to the Python. Now we'll see that, how to do that. Okay. Now I'm running Python 3. So here this is the old slide which is put here, Python 3.5.1, which I'm the version which I was using earlier. So now Python 3.6 I'm using, and this was again from the Fedora I was using. Now I'm not using the Fedora, I'll be just using the Spider. Even if you go to Fedora also, and if you have Python 3.5.1 installed, this is how you'll get it. You'll get the chevron symbol like this, and you can say the Python what to do next. Now what I'm writing here is x is equal to 1. I'm telling Python take the value of x as 1. So Python takes it. Yes, okay. You're saying put the value of x as 1. Okay, I'm taking it, accepting it, and I'm making the value of x as 1. So it will create some memory location. It will give the name of the memory location as x, and it will put the value in it. Next I'm saying print x. Now earlier I told you take the value of x as 1. Now I want you to print the same. Now when I say print x, the Python understands, oh, the user is asking for me to fetch the value which is stored at the memory location x and print for him. Now it is printing for him, for me. Next I say Python, do this. Take the current value of x and add 1 to it. So x is equal to x plus 1, and I enter key. Now what Python does? So it is not printing me. When I say x is equal to x plus 1, Python understands that the user is asking me to increase the value of the memory location x by 1. So it increases and keeps quiet. Then again I have to tell Python, okay, you have incremented, I want to see the value. So print x, it prints for me. So now, okay, so Python has done whatever I have told. Now I don't want to give any more commands to the Python, I want to exit. So use exit. Instead of exit, you can also go for using the quit. This also you can do. Okay. Let me show you the same thing on the Spider now. So this is what is called as an interactive shell, Python I shell. So this is one more way through which you can communicate with the Python shell. Okay. Now I'll just go back to the Spider. I'm here now. Now in the slide I showed it as a chevron symbol. Now since I'm using the Spider, it is something like this here. You don't have to worry. Okay. Now I'll say x is equal to 1. The same thing what I showed you in the PPT. Now I'm telling Python what to do next. Okay. Take the value of x as 1. Yes, it has taken, accepted it. Now I'll say print it. Print x. So print it. So you can see here, Python printed me the value of x, that is 1. Next thing what I showed in the PPT. I did this. Increase the value of x by 1. Let me do it. Okay, this is no longer required. Let me close it. X is equal to x plus 1. Done. X was there already and its value was also displayed. Now I've told Python to increase the value of x by 1. So it is increased. Now I want to know whether it is increased or not. I'll ask Python, print this. So it is printing me 2. Okay. So like this, any Python command or Python expression can be written here. So if you have only few statements to execute, you don't have to make it as a program. You can always give those statements in the interactive Python like this, and you can immediately or instantly get the output for it. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And this is one interactive Python console that is open. Like this, you can open any number of consoles here. That is the beauty. Say, for example, I have written 2 Python programs, one Python program 1 and Python program 2. I want to make them communicate. I want to make these 2 Python programs talk to each other. Then it is not possible through one console. You may have to open several consoles. So you can open one more console here if required. So just come here, just right click here, you can just say open an so interactive Python console. So it will open one more console for you, something similar to this. In this console you run first program, in the another console you run the second program, and if you have written program in such a way that you want those two to communicate, they'll communicate. Okay, that's fine. So hope you people understood till here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'll move back to my PPT again. Okay. Do you experiencing any delay in the slide movement?
No, sir.
So my talking and slide movement are synchronizing, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Next. Now elements of Python. So elements of Python is something similar to the language elements. So when you say language, you require vocabulary, you require words, and after that the sentence structure, and then the story structure. First you need vocabulary or words, and then you start building the simple sentences, and collection of these simple sentences will give you this story structure. Same way, so even the Python elements of Python programming languages are also arranged. So something similar to this vocabulary or words, we have the variables and the reserved words, and valid syntax patterns for building the sentence structure. And when you combine all these valid syntax patterns, you'll get a program which is equivalent to story structure of the normal language or the natural language. So is it clear? So the Python programming language elements are organized exactly similar to what? The natural language elements. Now Python scripts. In the previous slide I showed you the interactive Python. That means, so when you have only few commands to execute, you don't have to make it as a program. You can always open an interactive Python shell, issue the command directly. The first command, you'll immediately get the output. Second command, you'll immediately get the output. Third command, you'll instantly get the output. This is what you can do. And interactive Python, what I showed you in the previous example, is good for experiments and programs which have 3 to 4 lines long. If the program length is too long, say 100 lines or 200 lines or 1000 lines, is it possible for you to feed the 100 lines of commands or the instructions at the interactive Python shell one after the other? No, it will take you more time. So it is always better to use interactive Python for executing the Python programs if it is of only 3 to 4 lines. If it is much longer or much bigger, so then you have to write a separate Python program. You have to group all your Python statements in a file and save it as .py. And this can be run as a program now. So create a file with the name, with the extension .py, and you call that as a Python script. Any file which you write with the extension .py is called as a Python script. And what you will be giving to the Python, it is not just the command to execute, you are just giving the Python a script to execute. Okay, and the extension is .py. That is fine. That is already showed to you people. You know that. Okay, interactive versus script. Now what do you do in interactive Python? You directly type the Python statements one at a time at the interactive shell, and it immediately responds back to you. What do you do in the script? You enter a sequence of statements into a file using a text editor and tell Python to execute the statements in the file. That is what is a script. So I hope you got the differences. Yes or no? So when to use the
Yes, sir.
interactive Python and when to use the scripted Python. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So next is program steps or program flow. So what we will do is, we'll stop here, interactive versus script. So tomorrow we'll continue from here. Yeah. And if you have anything to ask me, please do ask. And fourth, all of you were in 4th C earlier, now you are in 5th C. Since I have the WhatsApp group already created for you people, I won't be creating one more WhatsApp group. If there are any new person added to 5C, please do inform me. I'll send the WhatsApp group joining link to them. But otherwise, rest all are already there in the 4th SEM WhatsApp group. Only I'll be updating the name. Instead of 4C, I'll be making it as 5C now. And just be there. I'll just download the attendance list, attendee list. So 65 attendees, good. I'm downloading it. Yeah, in the meantime, you can ask anything if you have the doubts. So if microphone is not working, you can put it in the chat box. Chat box is also open now. Yeah?
No, sir, no doubt.
No doubts. You have understood everything fine. Okay, good. Okay, I think attendance is downloaded. Okay, fine. If you don't have anything to ask me, so we'll end the meeting now. Thank you. So we'll meet again
Thank you,
tomorrow.
sir.
Thank you. Okay.